It's time to take you through this week in Nicholls Athletics as we bring you the best of Colonel sports from Nicholls State University. This week in Nicholls Athletics is presented by State Farm Insurance. Contact your local State Farm agent today and get to a better state with State Farm Insurance.
Thanks for joining us for This Week in Nicholls Athletics presented by State Farm Insurance. I'm your host, Mike Wagenheim. Coming up in today's show, we're going to speak with Athletic Director Rob Bernardi. That and a whole lot more on the way. Right now, though, we'll take a look at a couple men's basketball games from earlier on in the week. A depleted Colonel squad facing a very tall order. First, they traveled to Monroe for a grudge match with the ULM Warhawks on Monday. Then it was on to Austin the very next night to challenge the Texas Longhorns. Now, ULM had defeated the Colonels in Thibodaux earlier this year. Nicholls in search of some payback. The Colonels, though, still without the injured Ben Martin and Pedro Maciel. Meanwhile, word came down before the game that Dantrell Thomas was not expected back until January as he recovers from a nagging calf bruise. Well, we'd wind up seeing Dantrell. That was the good news, but the Colonels would still start 4 freshmen and a sophomore. Let's take you to Fan Hewen Coliseum for the highlights. Trevon Lewis, he owned the first half. Colonels working into the corner. The 3 missed by Lachlan Press. Lewis there for the offensive board and stick back. He made his first 7 attempts. ULM's Charles Winborn trapped at midcourt, forced into the bad pass. Lewis picks it off and finishes on the fast break. It's 6-0 Nicholls 2 minutes in. Colonels up 7 at the 13-minute mark when Trent Mackey drains the catch-and-shoot 3. The Colonels, though, held ULM to 26% shooting in the first half. Colonels build the advantage up. Shane Rillier into the forecourt, dishing to Brian Hammond, and he finds Lewis baseline for the reverse dunk. Colonels led it 20-10. Lewis had 19 first-half points. Hammond, meanwhile, was coming off a 20-point performance. He had 19 on Monday. Popping out for the open look there. Nicholls up 11 midway through the half. The Trevon Lewis show continuing here. Lewis penetrates, dishes to Jeremy Smith, right back to Trevon, absorbing the contact. Colonel scored 38 in the paint. Smith, meanwhile, played an efficient 20 minutes off the bench. Fred Brown turns it over. Smith scoops it up, scores the ball on the other end. 37-19 Colonels heading into the final 2 minutes. Too many chances for the Warhawks here. Stephen McClellan keeps it alive, and Fred Brown knocks down the 3. Brown averages 15 a game, held to just 5 on Monday. Colonels up a dozen at the half. Early second half, Colonels working around the outside. Rillier with the drive and the kick for the Lewis bonus ball. Rillier with 4 helpers, only 1 turnover. ULM gets within 8 in the final 18 minutes. He inbounds to Hugh Mingo, posting up on Talkington. He knocks it down. Mingo with 11 points. Here, though, Mingo gets it stuffed by Lewis in the lane. Hammond on the break. The bucket and the foul. 3-point play makes it 47-34 Nicholls. Inside of 12 minutes now, Winborn with a 20-point night. Right sideline, going baseline and muscles it up. Warhawks would get the ball in the paint here. Trey Lindsay misses, retrieves it, and out for the Mingo 3. And it's back to a single-digit game with less than 6 minutes to go as Mingo cans it from the left wing. But Dantrell Thomas, who wasn't expected to play at all, comes off the bench and shows off this move. 9 points in 5 minutes for Thomas. Final 2 minutes. Colonel's able to break some full-court pressure. Rillier ahead to Dantrell for the lay-in, and the lead is 15 points. And Nicholls would break it one more time. This time it's Thomas with the outlet to Lachlan Press for the slam. The Colonels pick up their first true road win of the year, defeating ULM 82-70. Well, the Colonels were in the unenviable position of having to play a red-hot Texas squad not 24 hours later. The Longhorns had been holding opponents to 54 points per game during their 5-game win streak. Not that Texas needed much help, but it certainly looked like fatigue played a role in this one. Let's take you to the Frank Irwin Center in Austin on Tuesday night. Colonels would hold their own early. In transition, Brian Hammond for the corner 3. Hammond led Nicholls with 9 points, and they got the lead 2 minutes in. Longhorns head coach Rick Barnes looking on as Jacobin Brown gets his big night started with the long-distance connection. He had 18 in the first half alone. About 5 minutes in, Lachlan Press defended on the wing, but finds a slicing Hammond for the bucket. The deficit is 3. But the Colonels turned it over 20 times in this one, leading to 25 points on the other end of the floor. Chris Talkington's pass stolen by Brown, the finish and the foul. It's 17-9 after the free throw. Later first half, the Longhorns pulling away, and they capitalize again. Jalen Bond with a steal in the run out, the big slam, and Bond racked up a double-double in 24 minutes of action. Let's move along to the second half. Colonels struggled mightily in this one with rebounding. The Longhorns collected 24 offensive boards. Clint Chapman missed a layup, but Bond cleans it up. 30 second chance points for Texas. Chapman had 5 blocks on the night. He denies Jeremy Smith here, runs the floor, and is rewarded with the alley-oop. The Colonels didn't have their legs on Tuesday, and it showed. They go 15 minutes and 36 seconds without a field goal until Dantrell Thomas comes off the bench again and knocks down the runner. The Colonels finally able to break that drought. Thomas again will get the ball here from Chris Talkington. And the good pump fake here from Dantrell gets a defender in the air. Finishes with the leaner. Dantrell effective again off the pine, 7 points in 6 minutes. This one, though, belonged to Texas. The Longhorns win number 6 in a row going away. The Colonels will face nationally ranked North Carolina in Chapel Hill coming up on Monday night. Well, this has certainly been a difficult year where injuries are concerned, as we just talked about. Our own Angela Boudreau takes you inside Nicholls' very own MASH unit, the training room, where a highly skilled group of athletic trainers try to nurse the Colonels back to health and back to competition.
The Colonels have surely suffered their share of lumps this season when 9 starters on the football team succumbed to season-ending injuries. The men's basketball team hasn't fared much better, as several players have already missed significant time on the court due to a wide variety of ailments. Yet it could have been much worse if it wasn't for the work of the Nicholls Athletic training staff, who have been putting in overtime since the season's kickoff. Former head athletic trainer Gerard White now directs the university's athletic training curriculum for students. He understands the incredible amount of dedication and skill that athletic trainers must display.
It pretty much entailed coming in 6:30 in the morning, every morning during the week, as far as evaluating injuries. So we're the ones that evaluate an injury in an athlete to determine what their injury is, and does the injury need to be seen by a physician, by a doctor. So we're evaluating injuries. Then we're treating the injuries. We have to determine what kind of treatments. We're going to use ice, we're going to use heat, electrical stimulation, ultrasound, or what modalities we're going to be using to help treat it. Because our job as an athletic trainer is to take an athlete who's injured and get him back onto the field. Now, there's certain steps we can go through to get them back on the field quicker, so that's what we're going to be doing. So we're evaluating, treating them. We're doing rehabilitation with them, exercises, retraining them how to do things properly and effectively after an injury, because that usually causes a problem after they've been injured. They kind of forget some of those fine motor skills. So we have to retrain them. So it's a whole gamut of prevention to the rehabilitation of these athletic injuries.
An athletic trainer's role entails so much more than treating injuries. The job description has evolved into that of a kinesiologist, psychologist, and friend.
Fortunately for us as athletic trainers, that's not really a statement that we give to them. It's the doctor who does that. We pass that buck on to the doctor. Now, the flip side of that is, though, once the athlete has seen the doctor and has the information, then we get them. And then we see the depression, the downside of it. And I have seen that a lot. And we do see that. And that is part of our training as well. We have a class that we teach in psychosocial aspects of athletic health care. And that's part of what we teach our students, is how to deal with the psychological aspect of athletic injuries. Not the physical aspect, but the psychological. We don't look at just the injury from today, this minute, this second. We look at this injury from 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And I tell the athletes all the time, I'm more concerned about you being able to play with your son or daughter, or maybe you being able to play football, baseball, whatever, with your grandchildren, 10, 15, 20 years from now. And decisions that are made right today on these injuries impact athletes 20 years from now. And you're seeing that right now with athletes having problems from injuries that occurred 15, 20 years ago. That had we treated them differently then, maybe the outcome today wouldn't be the same.
Trying to be the solid rock for the student athletes can sometimes take a toll. The Colonel's current head athletic trainer, Krista Byers, knows this all too well. As a collegiate pole vaulter, Byers suffered multiple ACL tears that put her out of commission in a sport that she loved. That experience helped shape her career path. While she couldn't compete again, her goal became to assist other student athletes return from injury and thrive again. Byers believes her past experience helped her relate to the student athletes now in her care.
That process, you have to work on motivating the athletes. Sometimes they get discouraged, sometimes they get frustrated, and so you have to do everything you can to keep them motivated so that they're giving your rehab plan as much effort as they would out on the field.
The athletic training staff works hand in hand with the head coaches to keep them updated on the progress of their players. The coaches, of course, want their student athletes back on the field as quickly as possible. It's the job of the athletic trainers to toe the line and make sure the players are physically ready for the demands of the competition.
We want our teams to win, but we have to separate ourselves from how we want the team to do and what's best for the athlete. We have to be an advocate for the athlete and for the athlete's health. And so if there's ever anything that, wouldn't be safe for the athlete to return to play, even if the team needs them, that's something that we have to make sure that we are protecting the athlete, making sure that we're not making any decisions based on what we want the team to do. Of course, we want our teams to do well, so we want to try and get the athletes out onto the field as quickly as possible and kind of try and get them back from injuries as quickly as possible. But my ultimate goal is to get the athletes out of Nicholls State almost as healthy or as healthy as possible from what they came in here as.
Oh, well, first of all, it is so valuable having a very good athletic training program and head athletic trainer like Krista, because you can't do it without them, because coaches get emotional. Coaches get out there and worry about coaching and don't see the big picture. There's been numerous times that she's handled or saw some things happen on the practice field or the game that I would have never seen. And she kind of helps prevent us from making foolish decisions as coaches and putting young men back in, because the athlete, the competitor and the athletes, they always think they're ready to go again. And I do like having her around and others, just because they kind of keep us making good decisions and being very, very professional and look out for the well-being of the young men. And then it's also, a thing too, is that if we had to handle it by ourselves as coaches, I think it'd be very challenging myself, you know what I mean, with all the time that they take and with all the treatments, as I mentioned, or coaches taping and all those kind of things. I think it'd be very challenging.
Fortunately for Byers, she's had plenty of help this season. In addition to having another full-time staff member, the Nicholls Athletic Training Program provides the athletic department with a number of graduate assistants and student workers. It provides a win-win scenario. The athletic training staff gets plenty of helping hands, and the students are provided with real-world experience.
The athletic training program students are rotated through the athletic training room. They're assigned to different sports or different clinical instructors. All of the certified athletic trainers here are clinical instructors. And so what we'll do with the students is they do help us out quite a bit. They're able to give us more people to help out with practices, treatments, and rehabs. But in the meantime, we are trying to teach them, and so we'll have to quiz them on their anatomy or make sure when they're doing an eval they're not forgetting anything. And so we'll have to evaluate them throughout the process or throughout the time that they're here.
The student workers also get to experience just a taste of what it's like to be a collegiate athletic trainer. The feel for work hours, the travel, and the natural stress of this demanding job wind up driving many away, even after graduation. For Byers, the outcome is worth it in the long run.
The burnout rate for athletic trainers is pretty quick. I want to say the last study they did is like 2 or 3 years. And so it goes pretty quickly. You have to love what you're doing in order to be an athletic trainer, and it gets tough at times. But I mean, for me, the reward of seeing the athletes get back out onto the field is enough to keep me going. And whenever I start to get stressed or feel like it's just too much, I kind of think about those athletes that I have helped and helped get back out to play and doing what they love, and it kind of gives me a reality check, brings me back together, and I'm able to keep going.
The student athletes and coaches here at Nicholls are grateful for the efforts of the athletic trainers. While they usually don't get the recognition they likely deserve, this season has put the athletic training staff in the spotlight, and they've shown an intense commitment to those in their care. For This Week in Nicholls Athletics, I'm Angela Boudreau.
Thank you, Angela. When we return, we'll hear from the head man. Nicholls Athletic Director Rob Bernardi chats about a busy fall semester and previews what's to come. You're tuned in to This Week in Nicholls Athletics, presented by State Farm Insurance.
There goes Dwayne's car. There goes Dwayne's house. And there goes Dwayne.
Man, that thing does not like Dwayne.
State Farm's got you covered.
In Thibodaux, call Mike Bednards. And in Homa, call Mark Anderpont.
Get to a better state.
Back with you on This Week in Nicholls Athletics, presented by State Farm Insurance. Never a dull moment around here, and we bring in the man who makes it all go round, Athletic Director Rob Bernardi. Welcome to the program.
Good to be with you, Mike.
We are at the end of the fall semester now, just a few weeks away from the spring semester starting. I guess give us a State of the Union address, if you could, on Nicholls Athletics.
A mid-year State of the Union. Well, I think we've had a good fall in my perspective. And of course, I'm not a fan or a coach, and I look at some different things. And clearly, in terms of academics, I think I'm really pleased at the progress we've made. We got our APR results back here in October, and our teams continue to make incredible progress. And I know the depths at which some of those programs have come from to the level that they're at now, and so I'm really pleased with that. So for me, in a lot of ways, the fall has been a good time for us. In addition to that, I'm really excited about some of the facility opportunities that we have coming up, and that has made my fall a lot more pleasurable. We've completed a renovation of our women's basketball locker room, which was much needed. We've got some good word towards funding and completion of the project of our soccer program, our soccer facility, and that's great news. As you know, about a year ago, we got state appropriated money to renovate our elevator, and so that money's come through, and we've got the designs picked out, and we'll get that project started in January.
That's
so
for Guidry Stadium?
For Guidry Stadium, yeah. So I'm pleased about that. Not so pleased about some of the teams, competitively, but I still remain optimistic. I know football had struggled a little bit this year. Certainly, Coach Stubbs would probably confirm that. But I think while we were a little bit frustrated, I think I remain optimistic about that program. I think it's in the midst of a turnaround, and I think we'll start seeing the results here soon. And the same with volleyball and soccer as well. I'm really optimistic. I think those programs are headed in the right direction, and I think we'll start seeing some positive results.
We were just talking about the jobs that the athletic trainers have had to do this semester with all the injuries to football and men's basketball. I'm sure you're tired of seeing the insurance bill.
I really am. I never thought people have a misconception about what an athletic director does. He or she, they think, usually just goes to games and practices and stands out and visits with players. Behind the scenes, that's rarely what they do. Most of the time, it's like you said, it's reviewing insurance forms or putting together contracts or dealing with personnel issues. And certainly in the area, particularly in the fall, we are heavily, with football and soccer, which are two really high-risk programs, we do deal a lot with injuries, unfortunately.
You mentioned volleyball a moment ago. You got a couple coaching searches going on right now, one for volleyball and one for track and field and cross country. Can you give us an update on where we are?
We just completed the track and field coaching search. We'll make an announcement here soon. As you know, we've got to get approval by the Louisiana Board of Supervisors, and we're in the process of doing that. But I'm really excited about that hire. We have a female. She'll begin next in January when the team reports back on the 8th. And the team has had a chance to meet with her, and I think she's just going to do a good job. I think she's a perfect fit for that program. And I think that team, which has really had experienced a lot of success, will continue on in progress under her. In terms of volleyball, we did our coach Trammell resigned this past season, and we're just in the initial phases of going through that search. I did meet with the volleyball team prior to their break for the Christmas holidays, and I'm pretty confident that we'll have somebody in place by February. Like I said, a lot of my responsibilities, unfortunately, are not going to games and visiting with players. It's dealing with personnel and medical issues, but that's just part of the job. And again, I think I'm confident that we'll have a new volleyball coach in place in February.
There have been changes throughout intercollegiate athletics, conference-wise, and the Southland is no different. Got a few members leaving, got a few members coming in. How does it all affect Nicholls?
Well, in general, the conference realignment has even amazed me, and I worked in a conference for 10 years, and I've got a good understanding of how they work. But daily, I am just awed at some of the changes that have gone on. When San Diego State and Boise State can be part of the Big East is just beyond me, some of the things that are going on today. But in terms of the Southland, I think our changes are a little bit different. We had 3 schools that left us, 3 Texas schools, Texas State, Texas San Antonio, and Arlington will leave at the end of this academic year and go into the WAC, which is good. And then we've added 2 schools. We've added Oral Roberts University and Houston Baptist. And so I think they're a good fit for us. Oral Roberts has a great tradition in basketball and is a solid program. Brings us to a part of the country that typically has been a little bit outside the foot of the Southland, but I think that's good for everyone. And then Houston Baptist is a new addition to the conference. 2 schools that are a little bit different than traditional Southland schools over the 50 years of the league. Private schools, a little bit smaller. Their missions and their objectives are a little bit different than some of the state institutions that have been typically a part of the Southland. So we'll see how it goes. But nonetheless, I think they're 2 great additions to the league.
Conference, especially in football, which is what we've seen so far. Sam Houston ranked number 1 in the country, and they're hosting a semifinal this weekend. Central Arkansas went to the playoffs, and Charlie Stubbs is going to play some big money games next year. Oregon State, Tulsa, South Alabama, then has to contend with the South, and it's not an easy road.
It really isn't. I was talking to Coach Stubbs yesterday because we still have 1 game to complete our 12 schedule. It is by far, the 12 schedule is by far our most difficult schedule we've had since I've been here. I mean, to start off at Oregon State, then go to Tulsa or South Alabama, and then Tulsa is challenging. And then to open the conference season on the road at Northwestern State are 4 tough games in a row. There's no doubt about that. So we have our work ahead cut out for us for the 2012 year. But that being said, I think we'll be up for the challenge. Coach Stubbs and that group of coaches are in the midst of recruiting. And I remain optimistic that they're going to get the kind of players in here that we were able to compete in the Southland. Southland, like you mentioned, we had 2 schools. Right now, Sam Houston plays Montana this weekend. Montana's been a perennial powerhouse in FCS football. And it'll be a good test to see really the quality of our league. Sam Houston's been, this past year, one of the best teams in the league. And so we're excited to see how it turns out.
Never a dull moment. We appreciate your time
as
always.
Thank you, sir.
Rob Bernardi, Nicholls Athletics Director. We're going to continue with This Week in Nicholls Athletics, presented by State Farm Insurance, right after these words.
There goes Dwayne's car. There goes Dwayne's house. And there goes Dwayne.
Man, that thing does not like Dwayne.
State Farm's got you covered.
In Thibodaux, call Jude Guidry. And in Houma, call Darryl Brew.
Get to a better state.
We welcome you back to This Week in Nicholls Athletics, presented by State Farm Insurance. Sure glad we could have you on with us this week. The Colonels women's basketball team is in action on Tuesday afternoon at Stouffer Gym, playing host in North Texas. Tip-off is slated for 2 p.m. That's an afternoon game on Tuesday, and you can reserve your tickets to all remaining men's and women's home games by calling 985-448-4790. Again, 985-448-4790, or by logging on to Ticketmaster.com. It's hard to believe the Southland Conference season opens in just about 2.5 weeks. We should have some terrific games on campus coming up. And the women's basketball team right now sitting at 500. They're off to a good start this year. All the information you need to follow Colonel Sports is available 24/7 on our official website, www.gocolonels.com. You'll find news, stats, player and coach bios, ticket information. There's a link to our official merchandise website there as well, so you can do all your holiday shopping right there at gocolonels.com. That's GEAUX, gocolonels.com. Bookmark it and head there often. We're going to talk to you next Saturday, 10:30. Right here on CST, as we will each and every week throughout this season. Want to thank you for joining us. For Angela Boudreau and Julie Beaudoin, I'm Mike Wagenheim. You have been tuned in to This Week in Nicholls Athletics, presented by State Farm Insurance. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you coming up next Saturday.
Today's show has been brought to you by State Farm Insurance. Contact your local State Farm agent today and get to a better state with State Farm Insurance. This has been a presentation of the Colonel Sports Network.